Sham, of course. And a friend of mine, Chuck, reminded me last week that, oh, you forgot Knightley, Rube the Great, and Excipitor. I didn't forget them, I guess, maybe, we're running out of time. But he bought, Rube the Great.
Rube the Great? Remember when he won the Wood Memorial when it was split?
And I'm going to tell you
won one
a funny
division. Sharp Gary won the other division.
And Sharp Gary, but I'm going to tell you a funny story about that in a second, just to lighten things up. But Rube the Great and Excipitor, were I think 3-year-olds in '74. The year after Sham was a 3-year-old. He bought a package of horses from James Cox Brady. Remember him?
Of course.
One of the last of the Blue Blood owners, or one of the last. And he bought Nightly Dawn from, that was the other horse last week we were talking about, Prince Dantan.
Well, let me just interrupt you for 1 second there, Ray. To think about Nightly Dawn, but you mentioned the word Nightly Dawn. If you mentioned him to Bobby Frankel, you would set Bobby Frankel off, because he still remembers the day when he had Linda's Chief in the San Diego Derby, and he still insists that Pancho used Nightly Dawn to wipe him out for Sham, and he broke right inside of Linda's Chief and just creamed Linda's Chief at the start of the race, and Sham went on to win the race, and Bobby never ever forget that.
My friend Chuck runs a Facebook page, Sham, Sigmund Sommer, and Frank Pancho Martin, and he is Sham and Frank Martin fan to the nth degree. And he sent me a video of Pancho after the race turning back and looking at Bobby Frankel, and if looks or expressions could kill, like, now what are you going to do about it? I mean, it was great. The Nightly Dawn was, overshadowed by Sham that year. But at Nightly Dawn, Pancho asked me to take Nightly Dawn out to Thistle Downs in June of that year to run in the Ohio Derby. And I was happy to do that because Pancho started at Thistle Downs sometime in the early to mid-50s. He came from Cuba with from what he always had, $500 in his pocket and one horse, and I wish I could remember the name of the horse. But he started at Thistle Downs, and when we went back in 1973, it was like a homecoming for him. Nightly Dawn was the favorite. Unfortunately, the track, it rained the night before, and Thistle Downs, a muddy track at Thistle Downs is like, like a cow pasture after a downpour. It was just, and he just didn't like the track, and he didn't run a lick at all. It was unfortunate, but I was very happy to be, part of Pancho's homecoming there. He was, he was like the guy that started there, became a big-time trainer, and now he's back with the favorite for their centerpiece race of the year. But Nightly Dawn, that was the other horse they bought from Darby Dan. He was by Sir Gaylord. He was a half-brother to Proud Clarion. But he also, so in the early 70s, he did have some, Sham and Rube the Great and Prince Dantan and Excipitor and Nightly Dawn, Great Above also, and
you left out his cult hero, who couldn't pick his feet up except in one race. You remember him? What I'm talking about?
His cult hero?
Cult hero. He was a cult. His horse had his own. His horse had his own following. 11 months out of the year, the horse couldn't pick his feet up. He was a nothing horse, except there was one race at the end of the year for him that he couldn't lose.
The display, display handicap.
Yep, Paraje.
Paraje, yeah. And he had El Bonito too.
December. It was in December. It was 2 1/4 miles.
Right.
And he won the race 3 years in a row.
Right. Right.
He was a pure stayer. He couldn't. You run, and during the year you run him at 1 mile and 1/8 mile and a quarter. He couldn't pick his feet up.
and the other South American horse he had like that was El Bonito. But
Yes.
but you know,
He ran short though.
he had one of Pancho. Somebody asked Pancho once what was the best horse he ever trained, and he said Dust the Plate. And Dust the Plate was